Hi everybody, thanks very much Dee, and welcome to tonight's webinar, and a special welcome to the team that we've got on the call as well to answer your questions over the course of tonight's session. So as Dee said, tonight's webinar is all about giving you some practical tips for record keeping to help you with meeting your requirements that are set out as part of the Red Meat Integrity System. So the agenda for this evening will touch on the role of the Integrity Systems Company, the importance of the Red Meat Integrity System. We'll also go through a little bit about the two key programs that make up the Integrity System, and then we'll look at LPA accreditation and auditing and get stuck into some record keeping tips for you. So just to start off with, what and where does Integrity Systems Company fit into the red meat structure in Australia? So ISC, or Integrity Systems Company, it's a subsidiary of Meat and Livestock Australia, which is a service provider to industry. Now, MLA and ISC both provide those industry services along with a couple of other organisations. Now, the organisations in the top row are focused on policy and strategy. So they advocate on behalf of producers to decision makers, and they're often referred to as peak industry councils. Now, all those organisations on the slide there, they all have separate roles, but they absolutely work together to support the industry and have a profitable and prosperous future. A little bit about Meat and Livestock Australia. So MLA, what we do is we invest in research, development and adoption and marketing activities on behalf of Australia's red meat industry. We do that by collaborating with the Australian government and the wider red meat industry and invest those transaction levies that are paid every time you sell livestock. They're matched by Australian government funds up to a certain point, and then they're invested in a range of initiatives that contribute to producer profitability, sustainability and global competitiveness. Integrity Systems Company, or ISC, on the other hand, we're responsible for management and delivery of Australia's red meat integrity system. Now, this system underpins consumer confidence in on-farm production and Australian red meat, and it covers and ensures that Australia's red meat is safe to eat and fully traceable. It also provides on-farm assurance, animal identification and lifetime traceability, and it certainly underpins the livestock selling system here in Australia, giving confidence to buyers, retailers and consumers. So just to put all of that into context as to why it's really important, the red meat in Australia is now a $28 billion industry. It employs 400,000 people across 80,000 businesses and delivers product to 100 global markets around the world. So the red meat integrity system is really important to underpin the value of our livestock industry. The system underpins consumer confidence in on-farm production of Australian red meat, covering a couple of key things. The first of those is on-farm assurance, and that's through the Livestock Production Assurance Program. And the second is identification and traceability through the National Livestock Identification System. Now, this red meat integrity system, as we refer to it, the combination of both those programs, supports our domestic and international markets. And because of this, our red meat industry, our red meat products are trusted and highly sought after all around the world. Now, there are multiple producers and many properties that make up the Australian red meat or livestock sector. The integrity system really is about delivering one measure of quality, though, for that entire system. And it's really important to note that we all have a role to play to ensure that we stand by what we sell. So just as a quick refresher, as I said, there are two programs which work together to underpin our industry's food safety and traceability on farm, and therefore meet our customers' expectations all around the world. The first is Livestock Production Assurance, or you'll hear me refer to that as LPA. It's all about on-farm assurance, covering on-farm management of food safety, animal welfare and biosecurity. It's the tick of assurance for your product from producer through to consumer, and it demonstrates the professionalism of the industry and underpins our market access for Australian red meat. The other program is the National Livestock Identification System, or NLIS, and it's all about identification and traceability. It tracks the location of every animal throughout its life. It's mandatory for producers, and it's endorsed by major producer, feedlot, agent, sale yard and processor bodies, and it's underpinned by state and territory legislation. There's three other elements which make up the red meat integrity system. The first of those is what we call the Property Identification Code, or the PIC, and this is required for all livestock producing properties for both LPA and NLIS. PICs are managed independently by the state and territory departments of agriculture, and their incorporation into LPA and NLIS is the only way that traceability and food safety can be managed at a national level. The two other elements there are the LPA National Vendor DAC, and that's where on-farm assurance and traceability for livestock come together as they move through the value chain. And the third element there is record keeping for both LPA and NLIS, which is why we're here this evening. And it's those records that need to be accurate that underpin food safety and traceability. So when it comes to being part of the Livestock Production Assurance Program, it means that producers need to keep their online LPA account details up to date. They need to maintain your LPA accreditation. And to do that, you need to complete the LPA learning and assessment and do that accreditation process every 3 years. And accreditation gives you more options for marketing your livestock and means that you can access those LPA national vendor decks when you're moving livestock between PICs. Need to manage your livestock and property in line with the 7 LPA on-farm requirements, and we'll focus in quite a bit of detail on each of those this evening. But those 7 requirements are property risk assessment, safe and responsible animal treatments, stock foods, fodder crops, grain and pasture treatments, preparation for dispatch of livestock, livestock transactions and movements, biosecurity and animal welfare. You also need to maintain thorough records as evidence of livestock history and on-farm practices, and also be prepared to undergo an audit if requested. So LPA is an audited accreditation program. So as a producer who participates in the program, you agree to complete an audit when asked. And this is what provides that accountability from paddock to plate for you as a producer, but also it's that accreditation that the audited accreditation that meets those customer expectations as well, because they know that it's a transparent and rigorous program. Now, for the National Livestock Identification System, as a producer, there's a couple of key things that you need to do there. That's keep your online NLIS account details up to date. You need to order and use NLIS tags as identifiers for every animal on your PIC. The required tag types differ a little bit between states and territories, but basically every animal must be tagged with an accredited NLIS device and can't be moved to another PIC without one, including to another farm, feedlot, sale yard or processor. You need to record movements of livestock in the NLIS database. So all livestock transfers between PICs must be recorded by transferring the tags in the database. The person receiving the livestock is responsible for completing the transfer, and the timeframes for property to property transfers varies and when you need to have that transfer completed in the database. So it's really important that you check what's required for your particular state. So obviously in Victoria. Now, all producers need to regularly check their own records against the database to ensure that those transfers have been completed. And this is particularly important if you are relying on someone else to make the transfer for you, such as a livestock agent or a sale yard, for example. You need to check that it's actually happened. And it's also recommended you do a PIC reconciliation every year just to make sure that the database is an accurate record of the devices and the livestock on your property. In terms of national vendor decks, what do producers need to do? You need to maintain your LPA accreditation to access the NVDs. Just a note there that NVDs are a legal document. So when you tick boxes on an NVD or you sign the declaration part on the NVD, you need to make sure that they're backed up by accurate farm records. You need to ensure that your NVD is clear, complete and correct. And you should also file and store your completed NVDs, both ones that you've completed and received, and check that they have a corresponding NLIS transfer to or from your PIC on the database. And just remember that NLS transfers and the related NVDs are reviewed. Oh, nice typo there, sorry about that. Are reviewed during LPA audits. So we've just given a really quick refresher about the different programs that make up the red meat integrity system. Now we're going to get stuck into some more detail around LPA and each of the requirements that go and the record keeping associated with each of those, because good records and systems are the foundation of the integrity system.